South of Westeros, between the Summer and Sunset Seas, were the Summer Isles, home to an ancient civilization whose long history traced back thousands of years to the Dawn Age, when their ancestors believed the islands were alone in a world of ocean. Populated by tall and handsome dark-skinned people, islanders spoke the Summer tongue, ate a diet of fish and fruit, drank sweet amber wine, wore capes with brightly colored feathers, and earned a reputation as wise and courageous explorers. A fractured people ruled over by various rival princes and princesses, their culture evolved over thousands of years to value peace and love above all else, developing enlightened principles foreign to most other nations. A polytheistic people, their most revered deities governed love, beauty, and fertility, believing intimacy a holy virtue and prostitution a noble profession, practiced by nobles and commoners alike. Retaining an almost divine reverence for making love, they often mourned someone's passing with wine and sex, thereby answering death with life. Perhaps most fascinating of all, they considered war a highly ritualized event strictly regulated by priests and holy figures. Rather than raising large armies for combat, rival princes or nobles seeking to settle disputes through violence gathered small bands of highly trained warriors which met on predetermined soil to fight small, tournament-style battles, in which the victors won the disputed prize, while the defeated who survived were exiled from the islands. In this way, disputes could be settled and a warrior's honor sated while avoiding civilian casualties and collateral damage. Although they did not keep many written histories, much of their past was recorded through carvings upon the talking trees of Tall Trees Town, as well as oral histories passed down through the generations in formal verse. Much of what Westerosi knew about these lands came from the book Children of Summer by Maester Gallard, who translated their history into written form. According to what the scholars of Westeros could ascertain, first contact with the outside world occurred between 5,000 and 8,000 years before conquest, when the Giscari Empire of Essos was at the height of their power, sending ships far and wide to explore the known world. One of these vessels was blown so far off course, they landed on the island Wallano and so sought to explore this new region. Yet the Giscari immediately boarded their ships and fled upon finding the dark-skinned natives, believing they saw demons whose skin burned black from the fires of hell. Naming it the Demon Island, Giscari ships simply avoided returning to the region, but for the islanders, this was a monumental moment in their history, finally learning they were not alone in the world. Embracing this discovery, they entered an age of exploration, in which they developed a strong seafaring culture, constructing vessels capable of sailing the open ocean, with the hero Prince Malthar Zak of Kaj earning fame as the greatest of their shipbuilders. Exploring the world around them, they first sailed east and met the peaceful people of Noth, before moving on to the Basilisk Isles, northern Sothorios, southern Essos, and Westeros. Finding Sothorios largely uninhabited, the islanders attempted to settle colonies along the coast, which all eventually failed due to plagues, ferocious wildlife, and raids from the native brindled men. Even so, some claim the famed adventurers of Kaj may have entered deep into Sothorios, possibly reaching and mapping its southern coast. Yet these claims are near impossible to verify, as islanders refuse to share their findings with outsiders. Some even suggest the islanders may be responsible for spreading false rumors about terrible dangers in the south of the continent, inventing tales about lizard men, eyeless cave dwellers, giant vampire bats, and monstrous apes as a means of discouraging travelers and slavers from exploring those areas, thereby preserving the settlements and civilizations they found. In any event, the islanders proved great explorers and merchants, eagerly trading with the peoples they encountered, able to offer many valuable goods from their homeland, such as pearls, gemstones like emeralds, rubies, and sapphires, spices like nutmeg, cinnamon, and pepper, hardwoods like bloodwood, ebony, mahogany, purple heart, blue maho, burl, tigerwood, pink ivory, and golden heart, as well as exotic animals like parrots, monkeys, apes, and spotted panther cubs. In exchange, they sought goods which their islands were unable to provide, like iron, tin, and other metals. Among the many trade routes they established, the most common connected them to Old Town, King's Landing, Bravos, and Karth, becoming so well known, trade ships from as far as the port of Ibn came to barter for goods. The islands themselves, which numbered over 50, varied drastically in size and quality of soil, with most of the population settling upon the three largest islands, Wallano, Omboru, and Jala. Wallano was the northernmost island, where they built Lotus Port, Tall Trees Town, and Last Lament, while Omboru was in the center between the Smiling Sea and Indigo Straits. To the south was Jala, home to the port city of Ebonhead, the Sweet Lotus Vale, the Red Flower Vale, and the Golden Head Peninsula. Although 9/10 of the population lived on these 3 islands, some few migrated to smaller islands like Stonehead, the Isle of Birds, the Singing Stones, the 3 Exiles, Molu, the Isle of Love, Lizard Head, as well as Bones, Zon, and Daku of Parrot Bay. There was also the island of Kaj, ruled by princes living in a pearl palace, where their best shipbuilders produced 75% of their famed swan ships. Then there was Abulu, which had its own separate history from the rest of the islands, beginning roughly 700 years before conquest, when the Valyrian Freehold destroyed the city-states of Rhoynar in Essos. Fleeing certain doom, Princess Nymeria, the last Rhoynar ruler, led the remnants of their people to flee aboard 10,000 ships, taking to the sea in search of a new homeland. After failing to settle Sothorios, Nymeria led her people west to the Summer Isles, where they were turned away by princes who feared upsetting the Dragon Lords of Valyria by providing refuge to their enemies. Even so, they did provide some small measure of assistance by gifting Nymeria the island of Abulu, which was nowhere near large enough to support the Rhoynar population. Thus, Nymeria and most of her people returned to the sea and continued their journey, while some few, largely women and children, remained behind to settle Abulu, from then on known as the Isle of Women. Unfortunately for the islanders, the attention and renown they earned through the age of exploration and beyond led many, like those of Old Gis and the Basilisk Isles, to start raiding their lands and enslaving captives. Although the islands had amicable relations with the Dragon Lords of the Valyrian Freehold, often trading with their people, they were nonetheless targeted by Valyrian slavers as well. As the various factions of the Summer Isles were often in conflict, many of their leaders took advantage of this opportunity and started engaging in the slave trade, selling both foreign and domestic captives. The rush for profits drove the islanders to grow increasingly corrupted, fighting many wars amongst themselves with the aim of selling captives into foreign markets. Later known as the Years of Shame, this period of constant civil strife only ended when Princess Zonda Ko, a former slave, rose to power and united the islands under her rule. As metal was a scarce resource, Zanda invented a famed longbow made of golden heart wood, which shot arrows a yard long, able to pierce steel plate. She then built great swan ships with tall platforms specifically designed to hold her archers, turning them into deadly warships. Winning many victories, Zonda Ko died a hero to her people and was succeeded by her courageous daughter, Chitana Ko, a great warrior who fought and won a slavers' war to completely eradicate the slave trade from the islands. Yet after her victory, Princess Chitana ruled unwisely, causing the unity of the islands to collapse after her death, once again returning to independent princedoms. Over the years, many more attempted to unify the islands, with half a dozen rulers successfully holding them together for a time, only to eventually revert to a fractured state. Although they produced great warriors, the Summer Isles never attempted to conquer foreign lands, instead focusing on defense, exploration, and trade. Even so, individuals sometimes left their homeland to end up as pit fighters or mercenaries in other parts of the world, finding ample opportunity for work in the wars of the free cities. One of the most infamous islanders to earn a reputation outside their homeland was Zobar Kho Kwa, an exiled prince who led a mercenary company and grew wealthy in the wars of the disputed lands. Zobar Kho Kwa joined the powerful Band of Nine, an alliance of rich pirates, merchants, and sellswords that included Meleys the Monstrous of House Blackfire, who was backed by the mercenary Golden Company. Causing turmoil in the disputed lands, they soon conquered the Stepstones to prepare for an invasion of Westeros. Yet the Targaryen king learned of these plans, and so sent his army to fight the War of the Ninepenny Kings, also known as the Fifth Blackfire Rebellion, defeating the invaders before they ever reached the mainland. A regular trade partner to Westeros for thousands of years, this relationship continued under the rule of House Targaryen, with the sack of Tall Trees Town by a pirate fleet in 19 AC, convincing Aegon the Conqueror to build walls around his capital of King's Landing. This fruitful trade relationship then continued throughout the years of Targaryen rule and beyond, so that when the island of Jala fought a civil war in which Prince Jhalabar Xho of the Red Flower Vale was deposed from power, he sought refuge in Westeros, finding sanctuary with King Robert Baratheon. An honored guest of the king, Jhalabar Xho often petitioned for armed support in taking back his lands, an idea which intrigued Robert Baratheon as he was a great and fearless warrior. And while the king's advisors ultimately convinced him to deny the request, Jhalabar was allowed to remain in the capital, becoming a regular fixture in the royal court. A special thanks to all those who contribute to CivilizationEx, like Your Cheap Date, Tamika the Black Wolf, Faith the Wandering Huntress, and the Emperor of Mankind. If you'd like to help the channel, be sure to give a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and click on the links below, or else go to patreon.com/CivilizationEx, where you can gain early access to videos, vote on future content, and watch the Patreon-only series, Heroes of Lore and Legend.